I am a PhD scholar at the Woolf, like Miriam said, and I'm in my first year of PhD in the computer science department here at Cambridge, and today I'm going to talk to you about my project on the computational analysis of religious scripture. So first, I will just tell you a little bit about my background and how I kind of found myself in this very unique niche of computer science and religious texts. So last year I was here at Cambridge, completing my MPhil in a field called natural language processing, also called NLP. Here you can go to the next slide, please. So NLP is the application of machine learning tools to written language, and it's a very expansive field that covers everything from automated chatbots to text-to-speech algorithms like Siri or Amazon Alexa, as well as translation algorithms like Google Translate. And so the key connecting piece in all these applications is that NLP provides a set of tools to create sophisticated mathematical representations of language. So this is my primary area of expertise, but when I was an undergraduate, I also was really interested in ancient language and religious studies and history, and so that was when I kind of became interested in the idea of applying NLP techniques to religious language. So with that in mind, what kind of the main idea of my PhD project that I'm hoping to get at is how can we draw really interesting insights from the text by using sophisticated methods from NLP to compare and contrast the language and the stories and the rhetorical devices that are used in and across different religious texts. So one of the things that fascinates me about the Bible in particular is this really intricate web of cross-references across the Old and New Testaments. That's visualized here in this graphic. So this is over 300,000 intra-text references that have been identified by scholars and then plotted. And it's this intertextuality and the continuity of ideas that I think renders these texts very applicable and very useful for computational study. So traditionally, NLP has limited itself to very boring data domains like newspapers and Wikipedia entries. And so often NLP models fail when you try to apply it to something interesting to read, like a religious text. And so I think working in this data domain will be useful not only to draw out interesting insights for religious scholars, but also to push the capabilities of existing NLP methods on intricate literary texts. So more specifically, there are a number of interesting sub-projects that I hope to tackle over the course of my PhD. The first idea is being able to predict from the text of a passage what the most likely candidates are for cross-referencing both within the same text or texts of different religious traditions. Then the inferences of that model kind of become another tool for scholars who are looking for this textual evidence of reference. Another thing that's possible is performing a distributional analysis of key concepts across the texts. So this is the idea that by comparing the way that a phrase or a term is used in a bunch of different contexts, you get a sense for what it means without having to rely on some kind of external dictionary or concordance. So you could ask questions like, is God portrayed more frequently as a merciful God or a punisher? How does that vary across tradition, and how does that vary even within different sections of the same tradition? So that's possible to explore computationally. And then finally, another interesting application would be some kind of unsupervised cross-lingual alignment of different religious metaphors, which could include taking identified metaphorical statements in their original languages, mapping them into some kind of language-independent latent space representation, and then trying to align them to each other. So that would be useful to see how different texts kind of rely on different formulations for the same underlying scriptural truths. So these questions and many more can be investigated just by applying state-of-the-art machine learning methods such as word embeddings or language modeling. So finally, this is just to give you an idea of the experimental workflow I'll kind of be working through over my time here. So the first step is to, of course, collect digital corpora of the religious texts, and there are many available online through various research institutes like the Woolf or through Tyndale House, which is the Center for Christian Scholarship here in Cambridge. The second step is to train models. So there are pre-existing architectures like word embeddings and language modeling. So those are options that I'll be exploring, but I'll also be using novel methods that might be optimized for narrative modeling. And this is kind of the broader point of application for the realm of NLP, because there's rapidly growing interest in modeling figurative language and literary language as well, so my project is germane to that. And then the final step is to evaluate models' performances on downstream tasks. So in NLP, we often do this with question-answering tasks or generative tasks. So the idea is that if a model has learned what a religious parable is, it should be able to write its own. So that's another way that we kind of evaluate what a model has learned computationally. So in conclusion, this is kind of my grand plan for my PhD project, which I hope will help to both improve computational modeling of literature, as well as provide religious scholars and people of faith with tools for a deeper understanding of Scripture. So, thank you.